Make a start. I think there might still be a few people joining us, but we'll make a start for now. So first of all, just good evening. Thanks so much for joining this Sharing Leading Practice event this evening. For those of you who haven't joined one of these before, Sharing Leading Practice events were born over the pandemic. They were a rare positive from COVID. And we've run about 30 of these over the past year and a half. Sorry, the lights behind me have just gone off. No, I'll just present in the dark. Hopefully you can see something of me. So we've run about 30 of these over the past year and a half. And these are all 90-minute webinars that allow schools in our Challenge Partners Network to showcase areas of best practice. We've got recordings of all of our previous sessions online, a huge range of topics. You can delve into them if you get a chance. Just very quickly before we start, I'm just going to go through a bit of housekeeping, if that's okay. So please do mute yourself if you haven't already. It just means that we don't get any kind of background noise and make sure the presentation goes really smoothly. If you do have any comments or questions as we go along, please do add them into the chat. We'll keep an eye on that and jump into the presentation when there's some natural pauses and pick up those questions. If you haven't already, please do change your Zoom name as well to your first and last name. It just makes it a little bit easier to see who's here. And as you're probably aware, we are recording this session as well, just to share with anyone who's not able to attend. But for now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Sally Garrett and Ivor de Sousa. Sally is the head teacher of the Ashley School, which is the lead school in the East Coast Hub, which is a hub of 10 special schools over in Norfolk. She's also the senior partner of the East Coast Hub, so she's pretty busy. Ivor is an executive consultant, and he has set up the de Sousa Development Consultants. And with Sally, he's done a huge amount of work with the East Coast on leadership coaching. So I'm going to hand over to Sally and Ivor now, and we really hope that you enjoy the session.
Okay, thank you, Georgina, for introducing us. Just giving a quick pause for our technology to work. As Georgina says, I'm Sally Garrett, head teacher and senior partner for the East Coast Hub. And Ivor, do you want to introduce yourself just briefly so they can see you?
Hi, I'm Ivor de Sousa. I'm an executive coach and leadership consultant and education psychologist.
And what we have planned for this webinar that Georgina's just explained the background of is just to work through the sort of overview of our aims and understanding what coaching is and some of those key coaching principles, how coaching has been used to enhance our leadership capacity and capability, how that coaching has impacted within our schools, and our sort of next steps in developing that a little bit further. And we're going to start with just a little bit about our East Coast Hub. Thank you, Ivor. This is where we're multitasking in different rooms. So you can see, hopefully, from the slide that we are very much a very spread geographical hub with our 10 special schools and specialist provisions. We've got some AP. Over the time we've belonged as a hub with Challenge Partners, we have had primary schools as part of our network, and we have had secondary schools over that journey in the last 7 years. But currently we are all special or alternative provision. And that's one of the reasons why coaching became such a focus for us, because we all come from such different eclectic backgrounds, even when we did have the primary and secondary schools as part of our hub, that when you were looking at your key priorities for your development plan, they were really diverse, with some schools wanting to concentrate on very, very different areas. So as a hub, we spent quite a lot of time talking about actually what would have the greatest impact, and settling on that part of leadership, and then thinking what within the context of all of our schools would make that difference. And initially we started looking at some bespoke leadership programs through Ambition Institute, as they're now called. And then over the last 4 to 5 years, we've been really focused on coaching as our way forwards, thinking about that as having the long-term impact on increasing responsibility, that opportunity through coaching to raise standards, to develop through coaching that clarity and vision and that team commitment. So that's a little bit about the East Coast Hub, and you can see, as I said, geographically spread and why we have focused on coaching. Thanks, Ivor.
Okay, so first of all, I've been doing the coaching throughout this period, working with leaders within the schools. And to start with, we'll talk about what coaching is and how it differs from mentoring. Often coaching and mentoring, people use them in the same context, but actually the training I've had in coaching and how I've used coaching working with challenge partners is there's a distinct difference. So mentoring is something that sure you're all familiar with in terms of like the traditional NQT mentor, for example, really beneficial approach where a person with experience, expertise works with a less experienced person and passes their knowledge to support that person's development. As I say, a really beneficial approach. Coaching is different. The way that I carry out coaching, it's very much facilitating the other person's development. So as such, the person doesn't need to be an expert in that area they're working with. So I've worked with a variety of people through this work with challenge partners and in other work that I do. With roles that my background is in education. I was a teacher, school leader, head teacher throughout my career. So I've got a fair amount of expertise and knowledge within education. However, some of the people I'm working with, they've got roles I've never done before. For example, school nurses, school business managers, as well as head teachers, leaders, etc. So, but say for example, the school nurses, the school business managers, they've found it really beneficial, even though I've never done those roles before, and I certainly wouldn't be best placed to be given them advice on what to do. However, using an approach where we look at what it is that the challenges they're facing, really going in detail, in depth at what's actually taking place, what's going on, so they've got some time to reflect and really look at the situation in detail, then starting to consider the sort of desired outcome they're looking for, what that's going to look like, and give them some clarity there, and the barriers that they're facing that's preventing them to get from where they are currently to where they want to get to. Then we'd start to look at the different options available to them to enable the person to find solutions that will work for them in their context. So the whole aim of coaching is really to develop the coachee, the person being coached, resourcefulness, and to enable them to take action to move to where they want to get to. So that's the key difference between coaching and mentoring. It's working very much in partnership with a person who's not necessarily an expert in that field. The role of the coach is to facilitate that person's thinking. So this continuum, a mentor would be using, making suggestions, offering feedback, offering advice, giving information, telling. They'd be in the more sort of directive area of the continuum, whereas a coach would be listening to understand, reflecting back, paraphrasing, summarizing, asking questions that raise awareness. And so the aim of the coach is to help enable the person to develop their own solutions that will work for them in their context. The mentor will be helping support the person to solve the problems they're facing. So while giving advice can be very beneficial, it can be a very efficient way of passing information on, sometimes it can bring about resistance. So Jenny Rogers, who is a coaching expert who's written a number of books on coaching, she has a phrase, "You insist, I resist." So sometimes advice can actually promote defensiveness. A person, maybe they may hear what you're saying, but they may put their energies into defending their position, actually pushing that person away, rather than taking action to move forward. So with coaching, it's very much working with the person, asking questions, working in partnership to enable them to develop, as opposed to giving advice. So coaching is based on fundamental principles, which, if they're followed, they'll enable the coaching to be really impactful. When I first was introduced to coaching, it was on an MPQH course, and it was a very brief introduction. And so I was taught a few techniques, but I didn't really understand the full principles. And so I didn't gain a great deal from that experience. However, later in my career, I started to find out more about coaching, and then I did a master's qualification in coaching, a postgraduate qualification in coaching, and really start to understand the principles. And I think it's sticking to these key principles which enables coaching to be impactful. So the coach comes from the standpoint. So these are principles that Jenny Rogers talks about. The coachee is resourceful. They don't need fixing. They will have the solutions within themselves, the ability within themselves to develop their own solutions to the situation. And my role as a coach is to enable them to do that, develop their resourcefulness. It's not about giving advice. Now, when I first started coaching, that was a real challenge, because often I would be experiencing things. They'd be talking about situations that maybe I had some experience of, I thought, and so I'd be wanting to jump in with advice, and I had to stop myself from doing that. That doesn't mean that you can't add to that, and you may have some great ideas that you can contribute, and that's great, but they're done in an options way. So when we're coming up to looking at different options available for the person, if the coach has got some ideas, that's great. Put them there, put them out there, and then together we can see if that would work for that person. And if it doesn't, that's absolutely fine. But it's very much developing that person's resourcefulness. And coaching is also, it's about the whole person. So something that may be holding that person back could be something that is happening totally outside of their work situation. And as a coach, I'll often work with people on work-life balance or dealing with challenges they're facing in their lives outside of work. And by doing that, it enables them to be even more effective in work, as well as focusing on working with people on work-related challenges. Another key aspect of coaching, feature of coaching, is that the coachee brings and owns the agenda. They're very much part, and they lead this process. So we'll talk later about a contract that we'll draw up, which outlines the areas of focus of the coaching. And the coachee is very much involved in designing that contract, identifying what they want the coaching on. Even within the coaching session, though, if we've actually agreed we're going to focus on a certain thing in a particular coaching session, then we come to that session and the coachee feels, actually, that's not the most important thing right now. This is the sort of thing that I want to focus on. That's absolutely fine. And it's a very adaptable approach, so we can do that. The coach and the coachee very much work in it as equals in a partnership. And this promotes real mutual respect. It's a really impactful thing to be working in true partnership with the person. And coaching is very much about change and action. We will certainly be looking at the situation, the context, the impact it's having on the person. And then it's very much looking at what they want to achieve, how they want to move forward, where they want to get to, and how they're going to get there. Judy Starr is also someone who's written a lot about coaching. And she talks about these coaching beliefs that are fundamental. So the real ambition and commitment the coach shows towards the individual. The coaching relationship is built on truth, openness, and trust. Trust is something we'll talk about later in the session, but it's fundamental. And that coaching relationship, if the coaching relationship is strong, then so much can be achieved. If the coaching relationship is not in place, very little will be achieved. So the trust and rapport are fundamental. The coachee is responsible for the results they're creating. So this is really powerful because it enables the coachee to take responsibility and to take action. Now, I've very rarely found that coachees, they've identified actions at the end of the coaching session they want to take. I've very rarely found that they don't take those. It really is, it's very powerful in that sense. They feel that sense of responsibility, accountability, even though it's done in a very supportive way. But we'll talk about the next coaching session, how the actions have gone, what they've achieved, what challenges they've faced, etc. So other real key beliefs that are fundamental are that belief in the coachee, they're capable of generating perfect solutions. And again, the equality of the relationship. But the real roots of the coaching relationship, a coach questioning is fundamental to being a really effective coach, and having excellent listening skills, they're fundamental. However, you may have the greatest expertise, you may be a fantastic listener, you may be asking wonderful questions, but if you can't create trust and rapport with the coachee, you won't achieve a great deal. It will just be a very surface level conversation. So trust and rapport are the roots of the coaching relationship. Now, initially, when I work with someone, we're very much focused in those initial sessions on building that trust, building that rapport between the coachee and the coach. Now, ways that can be done, we'll talk about trust a little bit later, but the rapport, something I'll often do in the first coaching session is just have a conversation with the person about their career up to this point. Now, the purpose of that is to look at to identify the driver, that person's drivers, the values that they have and the qualities they have. And this is very much done in partnership with the person. So we'll take a journey back through that person's career and talk about the different roles they've had, what they've enjoyed about those roles, any challenges they've faced, what they've achieved throughout their career, what challenges they've overcome. And by doing that, we'll capture these values, these qualities, and these things that drive them, the things they're most passionate about. And so it captures on one sheet of paper or a couple of sheets of paper these key things that really enable that person to identify these great qualities that they have and also what they're passionate about, which is a really great way to start off that coaching relationship and to build that rapport. So, are there any questions so far?
We haven't had anything in the chat yet. I have just popped a message in to see.
Okay, that's fine. So should we carry on? We'll carry on, and then feel free to ask any questions, and Georgina will ask me those questions, and we can answer any of those as we go. So, how have we implemented coaching throughout the hub? Sally?
Thanks, Ivor, and thank you for really sharing that clarity around coaching. So having, as I said at the beginning, as a hub, looked at wanting to develop our leadership, and then looked at that we wanted to focus on coaching across all our hub schools. The process and the steps to get to where we are now was looking at what was available locally that could work flexibly to meet the needs of the different schools, both geographically and the nature of their specialisms, and just making sure we were confident. So having, as I guess most of us would do, looked at that research, looked at who was available. We would then decided that we would work with DDC and Ivor, and then looked at that very bespoke commissioning for our programme for the East Coast Hub. And working through Challenge Partners, you'll all be well aware that each hub has an amount of money that the hub can utilise as part of their continual improvement. So we agreed that sum of money would be used to subsidise at least 2 coachees within each of our hub schools, which made it very affordable. And as we said at the beginning, I think we're in our 5th year of being able to operate like this to make the programme sustainable. But alongside that, and I suppose the beauty of working with somebody that was really getting what we wanted to do as a hub and the importance of leadership development within schools, working with Ivor, where schools could purchase more of Ivor's time and work flexibly depending on the needs and nature of each school. So our process as a hub was seeking what was out there, what was available, agreeing how we would go forward, and then using our hub funds to subsidise that programme each year moving forwards, and very much as a hub, that being a hub decision. And as we go forwards, then it was really important to us to work with Ivor and make sure that the head or an other identified senior leader was involved in that contracting process. Because we felt that without the buy-in of the senior leaders within the school, we would not have the strength of the programme that we wanted to take forwards. And I'm going to pass back to Ivor to talk through a bit more about why that contracting and the work with the senior leader as well as the coachees was so important.
Thanks, Si. Yeah, so how we implemented the coaching programme, the initial phase is actually the contracting. So what that involves is, as Sally said, I will meet with the senior leader, the head teacher, the line managers, etc., of the person that I'm going to be coaching, as well as the coachee themselves. So in that, and that's a fundamental part of the coaching process. So what's entailed in that contracting meeting is where we talk about what coaching is to make sure that we had a shared understanding of it. I'd share with them some feedback I'd received from people I previously coached, the impacts of coaching, and answer any questions they have about coaching. We then, if the coachee was keen to have coaching, and that's always an option, it's so important, it's fundamental, that is an option. It's not something that's done to the coachee, it's if they want to have the coaching. If they want to have that coaching, we then would draw up a contract, which is a very formal way of saying things. It's basically, we identified the roles and responsibilities that everyone has. A key part of this contracting process is talking about the confidentiality arrangements. And this is fundamental to coaching and for the success of coaching. So, as I said, I'd meet with the line manager, the coachee, and myself at the start of the process. But once we start the coaching, what's said within the coaching sessions stays within the coaching sessions. And what's said is confidential, with the exception of if there's a safeguarding issue, if I had a major concern about the safety and welfare of that person, or if there was something illegal. Apart from that, what's said stays within the coaching session. And the head teachers in all the schools have been fantastic in enabling that to happen. So although I'll be having conversations with head teachers, and actually I do coach some of the head teachers, they're great at not actually asking me about what goes on in the sessions, and I wouldn't share that because it's such a powerful part of it, because it gives the coachee the opportunity to really talk openly and honestly about their situation, about the challenge they're facing, without fear of being judged, affecting them adversely in any way. So the fact that they've got that opportunity to do that really enables them to really get clarity on this is what's happening in the situation, and actually to move forward positively. Then within that contracting, we also would look at what the person and the line manager feel we should focus the coaching on. And so we'd work in partnership to develop the areas of to be covered in the coaching program, and then also what the desired outcomes are. And coaching is very flexible. So sometimes we could be looking at maybe how to develop a leadership vision, how to actually secure that vision, how to lead their team to ensure they're in line with the vision and to successfully lead them to achieve what they're striving to achieve. It may be that the person wants to focus on their teaching, and it's absolutely fine. It could be and we can look at that, maybe developing better questioning, whatever it is. It may be that the person wants to focus on getting a better work-life balance or improving their prioritization skills. It's very flexible, and we'd identify what they'd like to achieve throughout the coaching session, throughout the coaching program. And that will provide a structure, a basis for our program. Once we've done the contracting, we'll then actually have the coaching sessions. So the way we structured it was we've always gone the way it's worked from October through to March. And there'll be at least five sessions over that period. I say at least, that's what we schedule in. But what I say to all the coaches is if ever something comes up in between sessions they'd like to have coaching on, if it's a challenge they're really facing, they feel they can't wait till the next session, they're able to get in touch with me and we can have a coaching session that would be within the cost of everything. There wouldn't be any additional cost. But the coaching sessions are for 90 minutes, which sounds quite a long time, but it's amazing how quickly the time passes in those sessions. Sometimes it's for longer if we've got the time, the flexibility to do that. What I tend to do, if after 90 minutes we haven't completed everything we wanted to, we would reschedule so that we can actually spend a bit of time, extra time together, maybe working online to actually complete the session. Now, most of the programs initially, prior to the pandemic, all the programs, all the coaching was delivered face-to-face. However, last year, pretty much all the coaching was delivered online. And the outcomes were still as positive as they were prior to when we did the face-to-face, which is really encouraging to see. So now we're doing a mixture of face-to-face and online, depending on the situation with the pandemic and people's circumstances. So at the end of the program in March, April time, we'll have a review of the coaching where we look and see and we reflect back on how we've progressed towards the desired coaching outcomes, what we've focused on, and also evaluating the program, what the coachee has found beneficial, what impacts it's had, any areas that could be improved. And that's really beneficial to enable me to collate the responses and identify, what difference the coaching has made, but also ways that we can improve further. So that's the process that we go through when we're coaching. So we're going to come to some impacts of the coaching program now. So
Ivor, I have had a couple of questions come through, if it's okay to ask them now.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So one question from Marie: is there an issue with coaching your own team due to the closeness to them?
It's certainly, I think when you're coaching someone from within your team, you can certainly use coaching techniques, approaches, which will help develop them. So you're asking questions, enabling them to think about how they can actually solve issues, work in partnership with them. You certainly can do that. There are barriers to overcome. So if you're working with someone within your team, you're line managing them, there could be an issue in terms of they may not be confident to speak as openly and as honestly as maybe would be ideal. So there are those obstacles to overcome. It doesn't mean you can't do it, and it certainly can work well. But it's a barrier. It's something that you need to talk about with the coachee, and it's all about building that trust. So it very much will depend on as we said before. Coaching will be as effective as the levels of trust and rapport that have been made between the coach and the coachee. If that's not in place, it's not going to work very well. If you can instill high levels of trust and rapport, absolutely it can still work. Later on in the presentation, we'll talk about creating a coaching culture and how you can do that. But there are some challenges, but it's not insurmountable for sure.
Thank you. Also from Helen has asked how much influence SLT and the head teacher has within the contracting sessions and the focus of the programme that you carry out with each individual, and how does this feed into the individual non-directing coaching?
Can you ask the last bit again?
How does this feed into the individual non-directive coaching within individuals? Right.
So the line manager certainly, and the head teacher, line manager, they certainly have an influence on the focus of the coaching. However, the fact that we're meeting together, we're discussing it, what I tend to do is I'll talk to the line manager, the head teacher about in advance about what sort of areas they feel will be beneficial. Then I'll meet with the coachee separately, and we'll talk about coaching and answer any of their questions on a one-to-one basis, and then the sorts of things that they would like to gain from coaching. And what's really been interesting is actually they're very much aligned generally, and so then I'll actually come together with the head teacher, the coachee, and myself, and we'll draw up the contract. And often what we're doing is actually coming from what the coachee wanted, but it often is very much aligned to what the head teacher, line manager says. If it's not, then that's something that we can discuss, and we can put out there, and we can talk about, these are some of the things that the head teacher, the line manager would like, and see what they say. I haven't had a situation. I think there's been the odd occasion where we sort of, the contracting took a little time, where we met the coach. He didn't feel 100% confident to start with. So he said, that's absolutely fine. We can meet again in another week or whenever, and we can talk some more then, give you some time to think about it. And ultimately what happened was, they said, yeah, no, actually, we do want to go ahead with it still. But that's the only occasion I think that's happened. Generally, they've been very much, everyone's been aligned. So it's gone well. And the fact that the coach is very much involved, is very much driving the focus, is very beneficial. But the fact that the school is basically commissioning me, they'll be paying me, it's important that the head teacher, the line manager is involved to ensure that the coaching is going to be beneficial for the coachee and also for the school.
Thank you. We've also been asked if we could share an example of one of the contracting sessions, which I'm sure we could probably do.
An example of contracting session.
We could probably post an anonymised one with permission at the end of the event.
As in, do you mean what, an example of a coaching contract?
Yes, what's drawn up, yeah.
Yeah, I could probably do that. I'll get that together a bit later, and I'll share that a bit later on. Yeah, we definitely can do. I can share a contract and how we go through that. Absolutely, we can do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
If I forget, if you could remind me, Chloe, with that'd be
This one's possibly more for Sally. Have we needed to prioritise coaching if more staff require coaching than the time available?
That's a really good question, and a challenge, I think, within schools in generally finding enough time for staff training and coaching. And I guess ultimately that's in line with where priorities are within your school. So certainly from the perspective of the Ashley School Academy Trust, we haven't found that as an issue, and we've kept to two or three within each programme. But I guess one does have to bear that in mind to make sure that the programme is sustainable and works its way through. Thanks for the questions, Chloe. Ivor, do you want to go into our next piece?
Yes. So we should have some people I've coached who are attending today. We've got Chris. So Chris, if you could unmute your microphone. Are you there, Chris?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Chris.
Hi there.
Hi. So, Chris, if we could talk through about your coaching experience. So, Chris, how many years have you been having coaching for now? How have I been working with you now?
Must be about 4 years, I think.
Something like that, isn't it? Yeah. And how did you feel when Sally spoke to you first about having coaching, and I met you for that contracting session at the start?
Well, at the very beginning, I wasn't very keen, very suspicious. Someone had said to me, well, they can't think you're a very good leader if they're putting you to a coaching program, how to be a good leader. We did a 360, and the replies that I got, I didn't think were very good. They weren't as high as my answers. So again, I felt I wasn't a good leader at that point. I felt very suspicious in that you were going to be reporting back everything that I said. But having had 2 or 3 sessions, I changed my opinion, came to value the coaching and its impact on me.
Fantastic. And what impact has it had on you? Because like you say, I remember those first couple of sessions, and you really were you could see you were really quite nervous, quite suspicious about what it all entailed, because it's not something that people have typically had before.
No, I hadn't ever encountered anything like that before. But I learned to trust you. I learned that the contract was what it said, that it was coaching for me, that it was confidential. I think it made me realise that I was a good leader, that it was an opportunity for me to self-reflect, to improve my practice, to talk through with you any of the problems and challenges that were there, and you encouraged me to find my own solutions. We talked about everything, we removed the barriers, what we needed to be able to do, and built my confidence greatly, so much so that I'm feeling happy enough to be here today talking to all of you.
That's fantastic, Chris. Because I remember on that first contract, on the first contract, one of the areas of focus was to talk confidently in front of others, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And so we've achieved that one, haven't we?
Absolutely, we certainly have. And so are there any other impacts that it's had on you, the coaching?
To face the challenges. Challenges change throughout my time here. The last couple of years, there's been different challenges. So we meet the different challenges. There are some staffing challenges. We had the COVID challenge. Now I've got a new team to lead, and all of these things it gives me time to think about them, to talk to you. It's a time just for me to be able to develop ideas and solutions to become a better leader and to bring the team with me rather than dictating what we do. It helps me to lead us as a team.
Fantastic. Thank you. And as you say, this is, I think, our 4th year working together now. So, and I'll always remember that first session in the contracting that you were, and like you said, well, I thought I was a good leader when we had the 360. I thought I was a good leader, but it turns out I'm not. And then we looked at that 360 and we identified that actually where you were scoring maybe say 70, 80, say 80%, people were also scoring say high 70%. And actually it's subjective. And actually you've got so many great qualities there that you were showing. And we're able to just look at that and move forward from that. And so it's fantastic to see the growth, the journey you've been on and the impacts you've achieved. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you for all your help.
It's a pleasure. And so have we got Lizzie here? Is Lizzie here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Lizzie.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for coming today.
That's all right.
And so Lizzie, can you tell us a bit about your coaching journey?
Yeah, so I've just looked it up actually. We started working together in January 2019. And when my coaching journey started, it was as my head had recommended me for coaching to help with my leadership, because I was going to be doing some stepping up to backfilling the deputy who was on maternity leave. And I was new to the school, so just supporting all those qualities and my leadership across the school, basically. That's kind of how it all started.
Excellent. And what happened?
So that summer, my head teacher announced that she was going to be leaving. And that September, I became acting head. And then the following February, I became substantive head.
So quite a journey.
Just a little bit, yeah. It's been a roller coaster of a journey since we began working together. So, but really positive.
Absolutely. And how has coaching helped you in that journey?
Oh, phenomenally. I've said to you many a times, Ivor, I would not be where I am today kind of without coaching, because it's just made me believe in my abilities and my leadership, and to help me to understand that I am a good leader, and I still question it on a daily basis. Whenever we meet, we sometimes go back to basics, but to just help me to lead by example and to model those qualities that I believe in to the rest of the staff. And hopefully, well, I am starting to see a shift in how other people are dealing with each other. The qualities that I value, I'm now starting to see in some of my staff, which is really, really positive.
Fantastic. And are there any things specifically that we've done within the coaching session that you found have really worked well?
Ooh. We've been exceptionally reflective, and one of the things that we've done, especially since I became head, and if I had a bit of a wobble, you've helped me to go back to basics in the respect of, so let's actually look at what you have done. But the whole process of coaching and making me, you know, through your questioning and the discussions that we have, I come up with the answers. I'm the one that says everything, and it gives me the ownership of everything that we've done. So at the beginning of the session, I'll be like, oh, I haven't done this and I haven't done that, and I can't do this, and you will then go through a whole host of different things. And I'll be like, oh, but I did do that actually, and we did do that. And the way that you always obviously write either on the computer or have big bits of paper that which I then get to take away or see at the end and keep, with the conversation written out on it. I can then look at it and think, oh my goodness, actually this is me on this piece of paper. You know, you haven't said any of that. It's my words on there, and they're all the things that I've achieved and or want to achieve or want to do moving forward.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's something that I tend to do as a coach. I do tend to take notes, write things down, so because there's so many fantastic things that the coachee says, some great thoughts they'll have, that if we don't capture it, it's just gone.
And I use that. I look back on it again. You know, I think we discussed that in the last coaching session. Let me go back and look at my notes and just remind myself of what we said, you know, what I suggested I was going to do, and I'll go back and look at it and then think, okay, that's my plan of action.
Fantastic. And you're now a head teacher, and I've coached other people within your school. What impact do you feel that coaching's had on them and on your school as a whole?
Confidence in my teachers, in particular, the teachers that you've worked with, or well, not just teachers, actually, the staff that you've worked with, because it's been various different roles, has changed their thinking and has it's made them much more reflective practitioners about themselves, not necessarily their teaching style, but about them as a person, and how other people perceive them, and how their relationships with other people are perceived, and just taking those that time to just take a step back before they approach something, and just be much more aware of relationships within school and how information is passed and things like that. But in particular, you know, two people that you're working with right now, I'm already seeing huge confidence improvements in their abilities. The people that I recommended, I believe, and I have seen, are exceptional practitioners, but they didn't believe in their own abilities, and they are now starting to do that, which is amazing, because that then comes across to the staff that they're leading. The staff have got more confidence, and we are seeing practice in general in the classrooms improve.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Thank you, Lizzie. That's wonderful. Okay, so Croxy, is Croxy here?
I am. Hello, everybody.
Hi. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you lot? Everybody all right?
Very good, thanks. Very good. So
I disagree with everything that Lizzie said. she stole my show.
So Croxy, what impact? Tell us about your coaching experiences that you've had.
So I started similar time to Lizzie back in 2019, and my head teacher said, did I want to be involved? And to be honest, I had no idea what coaching involved or what I was really kind of doing. I'm always up for everything really. So I thought, right, I'll go for it. And it was amazing. I have to say, Ivor, it changed me, personally and professionally, in the terms that I'm so much more reflective on things. That's for me the big thing. And you're so good. I know we're not blowing your trumpet, but you are so good at getting things out of people. Like Lizzie said, you do it kind of thing. I just found it hugely beneficial to my practice in terms of my, like, where I am in terms of like my middle leadership role.
That's fantastic. You're breaking up a little bit there, Croxy.
So yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and I'm still my internet's dodgy.
Can you
hear me
we can
now?
hear you now? Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Did you hear me then? What I said?
Not quite. No.
Oh, I was just saying that the whole kind of coaching experience for me was amazing. You know, I found it hugely beneficial.
I think we've got some issues with the internet there, Croxy. So I think we'll have to move on. I think, but it's really good to say. I'm really pleased that
in terms
that
of
it's been.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, I think Croxy we'll have to move on because of the internet issues. I think so. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for that, Croxy. But you found it really beneficial. That's great. And Sally.
Hi, back on, and they've stopped hoovering in my corridor. I do apologise if.
That's fine. So, Sally, tell us about the impacts that coaching's had at the Ashley School.
I think it's interesting hearing how suspicious Chris, who's a member of my leadership team, said she was at the beginning. And I think one of the biggest changes over the time is that slight culture shift, and that all leaders understanding more about those benefits and about the opportunities that's offered, and it becoming a much more predominant style. And it links with that question earlier around coaching your own team. We're still using Ivor, but all senior leaders use that coaching model and some of those the style of coaching rather than maybe some of the other areas, which then really enables all of our leaders to be working within our school development and improvement plan in that same way, and would be echoing that leaders, and particularly the curriculum subject leaders, having raised confidence and competence to find their own solutions and to be empowered if they're reading around their subject area to make some of those decisions. So those would be my quick headlines of the impact within the wider school, Ivor. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Sally. So at the end of the coaching programs, as I said, we have a review and an evaluation. That's a really important part of the process. So the coachee and the line manager, we get together again at the end of the whole process, and we look back at the original coaching contract and reflect on how that person has how they've progressed towards the desired outcomes that we set, and also to get the views of the coachee and the line manager on what's worked well in the program, the impact it's made, any improvements that could be made. And from that, I collate all those findings, and it enables me to identify the strengths and the impacts, but also areas that we can improve further. So as you see, I always ask every coaching and line manager to grade the coaching on a 4-point scale from poor to excellent, and it's been really positive feedback. So as you can see there, they've really rated it highly, and the usefulness of the coaching for them and their roles. And again, really pleased with the impact it's had. And this is working with a real diverse range of people throughout the schools, carrying out real different roles within the schools, and it's been exceptionally positive. So the impacts of the coaching program was, I think you've heard from the coachees who've come along to talk about their experiences. It really, confidence has been a massive impact that coaching has had. I think taking that time, as people, we're often very good at identifying what's in front of us, identifying what we need to get better at, all the challenges that we're facing, but we don't often take stock and actually think about where we've come from, what we've achieved, what qualities we've had that we possess that have enabled us to get there. And actually within coaching, it's very much based on that. We'll look at we'll look back over the journey. We'll look forward to what they want to achieve, but we'll track that journey as we go. And by taking that approach, it enables the person to see the progress they're making and the impacts they've had. And it builds their confidence, builds their self-esteem and assertiveness. We also, as we said, it's the leaders within the schools, they wanted an approach that was going to develop leadership skills. So I accessed a number of leadership theories that I've shared with people, but done it in a coaching way. So, for example, Goleman's leadership styles, or Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, sharing some of those habits, the theory, but then looking at how they can implement those, how they can utilize those within their practice. And also utilizing them when we're thinking about maybe some of the things they've achieved in their leadership journeys and how they've gone about it, providing some theories that will back that up so they can understand why that was successful. So we've included that, some leadership theory within the program, but done it in a coaching style. We've done a lot of work on, as working with leaders. A key thing that we do is actually encourage them to stop and really think and develop a clear vision for what they want to achieve and go in real depth as to what that vision is going to look like, and then start to unpick the strategy that's going to work best for them in their context with their teams to achieve that vision. So that's why I think that that clearer vision and strategy comes out very high. I've done a lot of work with people, particularly over the last 12, 18 months with the pandemic, on resilience, on coping with change, on supporting their own well-being, getting the right work-life balance. And that they've found really beneficial. It's had a real positive impact on themselves in school and also outside of school. Some people, areas that they're finding challenging are prioritization and organization. And again, we've been able to focus in on those and find strategies that work for them, as opposed to me coming in and saying, right, we'll try this, try that, this works for me. Actually developing approaches that are going to work for them. And what's really, other things that are really pleasing is that although I'm not working directly with the students, the impacts that seem to come through are improved student outcomes and behaviour, as the people, the leaders that I'm working with, implement their ideas in practice and improve practice. So these are some quotes from different coachees that I've worked with. So I've actually taken the names out of these, although they were happy for the names to be shared. But the reason I've taken them out is because I want to sort of talk a little bit about the journeys that they've faced. And confidentiality is fundamental importance of it. So I've taken the names out. But this person, the school business manager, the first quote here, she talked about it's been life-changing because the method's been used to explore the evidence to address any negativities and worries she had. So this person, we looked back over her career and actually looked at what she'd done, what she'd achieved, the qualities she possesses that enabled her to get to where she has got to. And she started in this role as a teacher assistant in the school, and she progressed up to being a school business manager. But throughout that journey, she felt she felt possibly that she just got the job by luck. She never really felt it was down to her and her qualities. So actually going back through that journey that she'd taken and actually looking at what she'd achieved and how she'd gone about it and what qualities she showed that she possessed to do that, really gave her confidence to realize, actually, I've got this position on my merits. And that was exceptionally powerful for her. This next person, we had a real combination between looking at leadership. She was the English leader within the school, a new English leader. So we looked at the vision that she wanted to achieve for English and a strategy to get there. But we also looked at how she was going to actually secure a suitable balance in her life so that she was able to sustain herself and do the role to a very high level. And she was very successful in being able to do that as well. So once again, it highlights, it emphasizes how coaching works with the whole person. It takes a very much holistic approach to enable the person to be really effective in different areas of their lives. So there are some quotes from coaches.
Hi, Ivor. Is now a good time to jump in with a couple more questions, please?
Yeah, that's great.
Lovely, thank you. So could you coach a team of middle leaders who have the same focus alongside the one-to-one coaching, or should it really only be carried out as a one-to-one? And if you do have a group, is there an optimum number of people to have in that group?
So there is team coaching, there is group coaching, and you can do that. I haven't tended to do lots of that, but it certainly is. It can certainly work. For example, developing a vision, a leadership team developing a vision together, and so working together to do that, you can certainly do that. I would say probably 5 or 6, no more than that. The more you have, the more challenging it would be if you have too many. But up till that, you can do that. It's not something that I've tend to specialize in. I tend to specialize more in the one-to-one coaching, but team coaching does take place. It can be done. I've done some. I've worked in one of the schools. I work with their leadership team on occasions where we get together, as I say, to develop a vision together, and you can do that, and it can work well. Yeah, and absolutely using coaching style questions with your teams is absolutely a very impactful approach, where you're actually asking the questions to develop ideas, solutions amongst yourselves. So yes, it can work.
Thank you. Also, how often do you use tools such as 360 or other questionnaires to gather the baseline information to inform the coaching process? And if you don't use 360 all the time, what other tools do you use?
Yeah, so I do use 360 sometimes. It will depend on what the person wants. So a real massive strength of coaching is it can be tailored specifically to the needs of the individual. So if the individual wanted to actually get feedback from their team on their leadership qualities, it's a great way in. And so we can access a 360 that they can use, and they'll do that. We'll then work together unpicking that and what that shows, and it's a great way to start the process. There's various tools that we use to sort of focus on the areas that they want to. So, for example, something called a life scan wheel, which basically it looks at different areas of their lives and encourages them to assess different areas, their level of satisfaction in different areas. For example, their career, their physical well-being, their fun and recreation, etc., and how satisfied they are in those different areas. And so it enables them to identify areas they're most satisfied, least satisfied in, and then looking at, well, if some changes can be made in certain areas, what impact that would have on other areas of their life. So that's another tool technique that we use. So really, we use a variety of tools just adapted to the situation for that person.
Lovely, thank you. That's all for now.
That's great. Okay, so coming towards the end of our presentation now, then there'll be more time for questions after. So we're developing a coaching culture, and that's something that I think Sally will talk about in a little while, about how the next steps for the Challenge Partner schools, how they want to take it within the East Coast Hub, how they want to take things further, to develop culture within the coaching culture within their schools. So what does that look like? What's required? And this links in with the question earlier about whether a line manager can carry out coaching. So there needs to, in order for coaching to work, there needs to be that commitment at all levels of coaching. So the coach and the coachee can't be working in isolation. If the leadership team doesn't really buy into coaching, it's probably not going to have as impactful effect as it could. It will still have an effect, a positive impact, but when there's real buy-in from all levels. And so the leadership team needs to really buy into coaching, really understand what it is and what it isn't. and also understand those coaching principles and why that we talked about earlier in the presentation, and why they're fundamental. And if those aren't respected, it won't work. So trust. So if coaching was taking place within a team, so if one person is coaching another person, well, what that person says within that team, will it stay within that coaching session, or will that get passed on? Or will there be an expectation of the coach to pass the information on to other people within the team? So if the expectation is the coach pass information on, you'll probably find that the conversation will be a fairly surface level one. And so you won't get the impact that you may be looking for. So it needs to be that real commitment throughout at all levels to trust in the coaching process. There's no point having a coach work with a coachee if they don't get on, they don't like each other. It really is, yes, you can do some work to actually build that relationship, but actually, if the rapport's not there, if the trust's not there, it's not going to work. So you need to make sure there's high levels of trust between the coach and the coachee, and between the line manager and the coach, so that they will trust that actually they will work effectively, they will maintain the confidentiality, etc. And ideally, what works best is when the coachee works very closely with their line managers. They keep them in the loop about what they're working on in their coaching, what impacts it's made. So the line manager is kept informed. There needs to be clarity between coaching, mentoring, and appraisal. So if the line manager is also the coach, and the line manager carries out the person's appraisal, well, will the coachee be as confident talking about their practice if it has an impact on whether they'll pass their performance management or not? Again, that's not to say it's impossible, but you need to have these discussions, because otherwise you may not get that openness, that honesty that's fundamental to it. To coach someone, it takes certain skills. It requires the person to be able to actually work with the person, really focus their attention on that person, really listen to what they're saying. They need to have excellent listening skills. They need to be really able to think on their feet, be able to ask the right questions to develop that person's thinking. They need to be able to build strong levels of trust and rapport with the person. And they need to do this in a way that's non-judgmental. They want to really understand and listen to this person's perspective and understand things from their perspective. So not everyone finds that as easy. And so the coaches need to be selected really carefully. If the coach doesn't possess those skills, you'll probably find that coaching won't go very far. Contracts we talked about and the confidentiality, that's fundamental. Looking at how that's going to work and making sure that confidentiality is in place. That will enable coaching to flourish. That understanding of what coaching is and what it isn't. So Chris talked about at the start, she really didn't know what it was. And so we spent initially quite a lot of time within the contracting talking about what coaching is and what it isn't, and emphasizing the confidentiality aspects and the trust. And also in those initial sessions, we talked lots about that so that she gained that confidence and felt confident moving forward. And also we talked about the benefits of coaching. So making that really clear, because it is something that people may be suspicious of, they may not understand. And so it's really getting that across. They understand what it is and what it isn't. Another key factor that's essential for coaching to flourish is that the coachee having autonomy to lead. It's no good the coachee coming up with ideas they want to put in practice and implement and then being told they can't do that and they haven't got, because it doesn't fit in with what's the way things work in the school. Now, obviously, we need to have structures and approaches that take place in the school, but the coachee needs to have some flexibility and freedom. Otherwise, they won't necessarily be able to achieve what they want to achieve, and the coaching won't be as impactful. So they need to have some level of freedom. And also the coaching should be focused on developing resourcefulness and independence. So it's not creating dependency for the coach, it's developing their independence and their resourcefulness. The equality side of things. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have someone who's a more senior position coaching someone who's in a less senior position. That's fine, but it's very much the quality of the relationship. working in partnership together to solve the problem. This ask, not tell, non-directive approach is really essential for effective coaching. If coaching is going to be carried out within the school, then there needs to be investment in terms of when the coaching is going to happen. Freeing the coach up to carry this coaching out is a really good way of doing that, and showing them it really shows the value that you put in coaching. And the coach needs to have their skills enhanced, so regular training, regular supervision for the coaches. Often they'll be dealing with issues that can be quite challenging, sometimes can be quite upsetting. And so having that access to supervision is essential. And that's an important requirement for a coach. They do access supervision. I access supervision. And it's really important and it's really beneficial. Another key thing, the coach needs to go in really believing in that coaching and believing the impact that coaching has. If they don't, chances are the impact won't be so great. So it very much is that being ambitious for the coachee. And how to keep the coachee alive. It's essential that it doesn't just drift and drift. So having those reviews on a regular basis. So as we say in the coaching program that we've developed, it's after 5 sessions. So having a review built into it, so the line manager is kept in the loop about how things are going, so that we can reflect how things are going as we go. Recontracting. So if I'm starting, so I've worked with Lizzie and Chris over a number of years now, but we always, at the end of it, we always have that review. We always then, if they'd like to carry on with coaching, we look at, well, what do you want to focus on this time? So we have a recontract. And the same with Croxy as well. I've been doing some work with Croxy this year as well. And again, we've recontracted in a sense. We've identified the focus of those sessions, what we're going to focus on, and moving forward. And then this principle, coaching is optional, it's not mandatory. If someone's forced to be coached, actually, it's unlikely to be beneficial. So Chris was saying that she was reluctant initially, but it was very much all along, it was a case of we were discussing it, this is an option for you, don't have to have this, and that's always the case. And sometimes you'll find that someone feels actually it's not for them, and they decline it or decide to not have the coaching sessions. But in my experience, that's been exceptionally rare that that's happened. So that's some tips for developing a coaching culture. And you need to look at your schools and think, okay, is this where we're at in our journey at the moment? Is coaching what we want at the moment? And if it is, and if it's the right time for that, then it's very, very powerful. But you need to look at your schools and think, will this work within my school? Okay, Sally, did you want to talk about the next steps for the East Coast Hub?
Thanks, Ivor. And I'm really aware that we're talking through, I suppose, our journey as a hub and the work that we have done at coaching. And obviously there's lots of different routes and journeys different schools or hubs might take from this. But where we're at the moment is all of the hub schools have an absolute commitment to helping leaders further improve. And again, echo what Chris says, we've all got great leaders. It's about that further improvement, and in the good old challenge partners rhetoric, that upwards convergence, so that we've got that continual improvement. So whilst maintaining that type of focus and the work with Ivor on the external coaching, as schools together, we're exploring what that might look like in our own establishments if we want to take that a bit further. And the way I was thinking about this is saying that, well, this is how we get things done here. If you're working within the Ashes School Academy Trust or in Liz's school or wherever, this is how we get things done here. The culture of the school is it's a coaching conversation, and everybody is listening more, reflecting more, and working towards those shared goals. And that's not to say there isn't a time for being very direct as a leader and working in a very different way, but that the culture of the school and some of those shared values, having that ethos and approach, there's a greater understanding of. And as Ivor talked through in those previous 2 slides, there's a lot to consider And that balance, and I've forgotten, I think it was Maria said right back at the beginning, how do you get that balance within your own school with your line manager type ethos, which ultimately is where people will be working. And you've heard Ida repeat many a time, it's about the whole person. That trusted rapport and confidentiality is what will take that through. But if that's how you wish to set the culture of the school, that's where we're working towards. So as part of that exploration journey, all the or senior leaders from each of our hub schools had the privilege of working with Ivor ourselves as the very start of a journey to improve our coaching skills. And again, quite interestingly, some had experience of coaching, but there was one of our head teachers that joined us, hadn't ever in their journey through several headships, hadn't had that experience before. So a lot of what I call real light bulb moments and pins dropping to really see that it was a different way of working. So at the moment, we're still exploring. We, as leaders within our schools, within the hub, are trying to model that approach where we can, really using those skills as part of our training last summer to work that through. And having those conversations, and for me that means I have one-to-ones with a number of leaders and staff within the school, so taking that approach, but also, and I think Ivor captured it, trying not to find solutions myself as quickly as one might have done before, taking that time to reflect and to enable different people to come forwards with solutions and ideas at all levels. And it's just those very small steps and incremental changes that each school at the moment within our hub is just embarking on that journey. And it will, I think, ultimately look different in different schools. But as a hub, and through the work that we do with Challenge Partners, we're having those discussions in our hub meetings. It forms part of what we do. And I'm aware that I think a couple of the leaders that had volunteered to participate in this have needed to go, but that was part of the discussion within the hub, that they were willing to contribute to this leadership event. So that is where we're at now. And again, I think it will be quite personal for each school, but based within those principles and those small steps going forwards to make sure that you get it, that it is right within the culture of that school and within each relationship.
Yeah, and some schools that I work with, some schools I do all the coaching within the school, but other schools I've actually done some training for staff within their schools on coaching. And so they have got some internal coaches, and they have a mixture of internal coaching and external coaching. So that's how it tends to work. Okay, so I think we're coming to questions time now as well. And I'm conscious that we said about sharing the coaching contract, which is something we can do. What I'll have to do in order to do that, though, is come out of this PowerPoint and then open up a coaching contract. So we'll do that in a bit. But if there are any questions, then I can answer those. Or if Sally's, yep. Okay.
Yeah, we haven't had any more at the moment. I'll just give people a couple of seconds just in case any ping through.
Okay, while we're doing that, I'll just stop the share a minute and I'll try and get a coaching contract.
Perfect.
Would it be easier, Ivor, if you wanted to send it through to me, because I'll send through a follow-up email and I can share it.
Oh, okay.
Would that be easier?
Yeah, that's fine. I can send an example of a contract through.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
It might be easier for you.
Thanks, Georgina. That is really helpful, rather than us messing with our technology, which on the whole has run smoothly.
So, are there any further questions?
Haven't had any through yet. Here we go. Have you upskilled coaches in schools?
Yeah, so absolutely. We've so I've done some training in I did, as Sally mentioned, I did training of head teachers in coaching. So we had 2-day training program on that. Sally had done some coaching before, and she had this training as well. So Sally, were you upskilled?
It was a really good 2 days to reflect and review those skills, and it's as I said in that little piece just before, something I really try to purposefully build into more conversations going forwards. And so yes, I Ivor did the training within the schools, which is the sort of that direct question.
Yeah, and certainly in other schools that I work with, I've trained people to be coaches within the schools, and then I do provide supervision for them to develop their coaching skills as they go along. So yeah, absolutely, we do that. Sally, could I just ask, can you say, so what do you find as a head teacher the benefits of using a coaching approach as opposed to, like you say, maybe you coming up with the solutions? Yeah, what benefits do you find? Because it can take longer.
It's a really good question, Ivor, and I think it is that piece which I think all the coaches that have shared a bit of their journey with all talked about, is that I suppose part of it, the self-actualization for the leader, that they are a skilled leader. They have the knowledge, skills and understanding within their role, and a bit more self-belief. They have the confidence and competence to find their own solutions, which does change the nature of how you work, certainly how we're working within the school here, and having that shared understanding of some of that clarity of vision, the importance of sharing that, working forwards.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely. And I think it comes back to that point of the real value of developing that confidence. And so much is about the confidence and coaching does promote that, enabling the person to feel confident they can solve this problem for themselves. And they have got solutions, and actually, but they're there. You've got someone who's supporting you to do that. I think that's very powerful.
Thanks, Ivor.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes, so one more. Is there any specific training you think prospective coaches such as yourself should do before coaching other people?
I think certainly it does. You do require training to do it. So you can access there's various training approaches, programs out there. I can also do training. But you can access coaching training, and it's essential, I think, really to access training before you coach. So sometimes you can very quickly maybe learn some different coaching frameworks. So coaching framework is you may have heard of BASIC or Oscar or Grow. They're different models of coaching, and they will give you a structure, a framework to have a conversation, a coaching conversation. But really, unless you understand those principles, unless you've had that training and you develop those skills, it won't be as impactful. So absolutely, I think it's really important that people have training before.
Thank you. That looks like that is my last question.
Okay. Right. So it's frozen. My screen's just frozen pretty much the last slide. Oh, here we go. Right. So why is coaching effective? So a massive part of coaching is listening. And here's some quotes here that I think just really sum up why it's so effective. So have a read through these quotes. And I think Kung Fu Panda sums it up. Master Oogway's quote there. I think this really, often when I'm coaching someone, they're dealing with something that they're finding really quite challenging, that sometimes they're feeling quite overwhelmed. Sometimes they just can't think clearly through this problem. They've got so many thoughts going through their head. And actually taking that time to just stop, talk it through in depth, in detail, it is like this water. The mind becomes agitated. It starts to settle, things settle in their minds, and they can see a pathway through. But coaching enables the person to actually talk it through and allow their minds to settle so they can move forward confidently. So I think Master Uguay summed it up. Okay. So thank you for attending today. It's been lovely sharing this with you. I hope you found it beneficial. So that's who I am, my contact details there, and that's who Sally is and her contact details. So thank you. And thank you to all the people who, the coaches who came along to share their experiences. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivor, and thank you so much, Sally. This has been a really fantastic session. It's so clear how powerful coaching is. And it's been amazing to sort of access your expertise and knowledge as well. And it's clear that you've really managed to develop sort of fantastic culture across the hub schools. I think this has been a really, really good session. It's clear people have found it really helpful. A huge thank you to you both, and also to all of your willing participants who joined as well. It was really interesting to hear from them as well, and their sort of their opinions on it and thoughts and benefits and things. I know a lot of people have had to dash off, so if you haven't already, please do fill out the feedback form. That's really, really helpful, and I will send through a kind of follow-up email with an access to this recording if you want to share that with other members of staff, as well as a copy of slides and also the contract that Ivor mentioned. And do also have a look at any kind of previous SLPs that we've run on the website. We've got, as I said, a huge sort of wealth of resources on there, so do have a look at them if you have the time. But just a huge thanks to all of you for joining this afternoon. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and just again a massive thank you to Ivor and Sally for all the time that you've put into this.
And if anyone would like to find out more, don't hesitate to get in touch and contact me. That's fine. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.